hear this carefully. There are moments in time that look ordinary, days that appear like every other day, yet heaven has marked them. Because God does not work randomly. He works by appointed times. The Bible tells us that God sets divine appointments. Moments chosen before you were born. Moments when eternity touches time. And this is one of those moments. December 15, 2025, to the world it is just a date. But to God, it is a turning point. Because change does not always come with noise. Sometimes it comes with a word. And when God speaks, destinies shift. You've been asking, why has it been delayed? Why does it feel like I'm stuck? Why am I so close, yet not there? Because preparation always comes before promotion. Pressure comes before release. And silence often comes before a breakthrough. Think of Joseph, years in obscurity before one single day changed everything. Think of Esther. One appointed moment altered the fate of a nation. God works this way. What you have been enduring is not punishment. It is positioning. What you thought was lost was actually alignment. What looked like a closed door was God protecting you from entering too soon. Because if the blessing came earlier, it would have crushed you. But now you're ready. December 15, 2025 is not about the calendar. It's about completion. A cycle ends. A season shifts. An old chapter closes, and something long prayed for begins to manifest. But hear this, change does not come to the passive. It comes to the prepared. God is saying, return to what you knew was right. Return to prayer. Return to obedience. Return to humility. Because the promise is real, but so is the responsibility. On that day, some will say, nothing happened. And others will say, my life was never the same. The difference will not be the date. The difference will be the heart. This is not a message of fear. It is a message of mercy. God always warns before He moves. He always calls before He changes things. And today is the call. Prepare your house. Prepare your heart. Prepare your spirit. Because when God marks a day, He expects a response. December 15th, 2025 is not the end. It is the beginning. And what is coming will not look like what you left behind. Those who have ears, let them hear. There are moments in time that seem no different from any other. The sun rises, the hours pass, and the world moves forward as it always has. Yet hidden within the flow of ordinary days are moments that have been set apart by heaven. God does not move randomly, and history does not unfold by accident. Scripture reveals that there are appointed times, moments chosen before a person ever takes their first breath, moments when God steps into time with intention and purpose. What appears ordinary on the calendar can be extraordinary in the plan of God. Throughout the Bible, God marks time. He establishes seasons, cycles, and divine appointments. These moments are not controlled by human effort, political shifts, or economic conditions. They are determined by the will of God alone. When such a moment arrives, it does not announce itself with fireworks or headlines. It often comes quietly, unnoticed by many, yet powerful enough to alter the direction of a life forever. This is how God has always worked. A single day changed the destiny of Joseph when he was lifted from a prison cell to a palace. One moment transformed Esther from a hidden queen into a deliverer of her people. The change did not come gradually. It came suddenly at the appointed time. An appointed time is not about speed, but readiness. God may promise something years in advance, yet release it in one decisive moment. The waiting is not wasted. Every delay, every test, every unanswered prayer is part of a preparation that aligns a person with the timing of God. When the appointed moment arrives, it is not because circumstances have improved, but because heaven has determined that the time is fulfilled. Until that moment, things may feel stagnant, confusing, or even painful, yet God is never late, and He is never early. He arrives precisely when His purpose is complete. Many people miss divine moments because they expect them to look dramatic or feel overwhelming. In reality, God often moves in subtle ways. A conversation, a decision, a sudden clarity, or a door opening that was once shut can all mark an appointed time. The power of the moment is not in how loud it is, but in what it changes. When God appoints a time, it carries authority. What was stuck begins to move. What was broken starts to heal. What was delayed is suddenly released. This is not coincidence. It is alignment. An appointed time also carries responsibility. When God marks a moment, He calls for awareness and response. Those who are attentive recognize that something is shifting. They sense that this is not just another day, but a turning point. Others may pass through the same moment unchanged, not because God failed to move, but because they failed to discern it. Divine timing does not force itself on anyone. It invites, it calls, and it waits for obedience. What makes an appointed time so powerful is that it is irreversible. Once it passes, life is no longer the same. Even when challenges remain, the direction has changed. The heart understands that God has intervened. Faith is strengthened, purpose becomes clearer, and hope is renewed. These moments remind us that God is actively involved in human history and personal destiny. When heaven marks a day, it is not meant to create fear, but expectation. It is a reminder that God is in control, that He sees the whole picture, and that every season has meaning. The appointed time comes not to overwhelm, but to fulfill. And when it arrives, those who are ready will look back and realize that what seemed like an ordinary day was in fact the day everything began to change. Before God brings a breakthrough, He almost always brings a season of preparation. This season rarely feels productive or encouraging. It often feels like delay, resistance, or silence. People begin to question themselves, their calling, and even the promises they once believed with confidence. Yet preparation is one of the most misunderstood acts of God. What feels like nothing is happening is often the period when the most important work is being done beneath the surface. Preparation is not punishment. It is protection. If God were to release a promise before a person is ready to carry it, the blessing itself could become a burden. Many things that look like delays are actually acts of mercy. God sees not only where you are going, but what you must become in order to remain there. Character must grow before influence. Wisdom must deepen before increase. Strength must be formed before responsibility. God does not rush what He intends to last in seasons of preparation. God often removes visible progress so that inner transformation can take place. When the external slows down, the internal is refined. Motives are exposed, pride is confronted, and faith is tested. It is easy to trust God when answers come quickly. It is much harder when prayers seem to echo back in silence. Yet it is in that silence that endurance is built. Faith matures not when everything is clear, but when obedience continues despite uncertainty. This season can feel uncomfortable because it strips away self-reliance. Plans that once seemed solid begin to fail. Doors that appeared open suddenly close. Support systems may weaken, and familiar paths may disappear. All of this creates a dependence on God that could not be formed any other way. God is not trying to make life harder. He is teaching the heart to lean fully on Him. What is being developed is not just patience, but trust. Preparation also involves timing. God is aligning circumstances, people, and opportunities that cannot be rushed. Even when a person feels ready, the full picture may not be. A delay in one area may be connected to progress happening elsewhere, unseen and unknown. God's preparation accounts for every detail. When the moment finally arrives, everything fits together in a way that could not have been planned by human effort. During this time, comparison becomes a trap. Watching others advance while you remain still can breed frustration and doubt. But God does not prepare people equally. He prepares them uniquely. Each calling carries its own weight, and each assignment requires a specific kind of strength. What others can handle now may not be what you are meant to carry yet. Preparation ensures that when your moment comes, you will not collapse under the pressure of it. There is also a refining of desire in preparation. Sometimes what we think we want is not what we truly need. God allows time to reshape our understanding so that when the breakthrough comes, it aligns with His purpose rather than our pride. This process humbles the heart and purifies intention. What emerges is not just readiness for success, but readiness to honor God within it. When preparation is complete, the shift often happens quickly. What took years to form may manifest in a single moment. The waiting suddenly makes sense. The struggle reveals its purpose. Looking back, it becomes clear that every delay, every closed door, and every quiet season was shaping something essential. The breakthrough did not come late. It came right on time. Preparation before breakthrough is not something to fear or resist. It is evidence that God is serious about what He has promised. He prepares carefully because He gives intentionally. And when the moment arrives, the one who endured the preparation will be able to stand firmly in the blessing, not overwhelmed by it, but strengthened by everything that came before. There are seasons in life when everything feels like is being taken away rather than added. What once brought stability begins to shift. What once made sense no longer does. Relationships change. Opportunities disappear and familiar paths suddenly close. In these moments, it is easy to believe that something has gone wrong or that loss has taken over. Yet not every loss is a sign of defeat. Some losses are acts of alignment, carefully allowed so that a life can be positioned for what comes next. What feels like loss often carries a hidden purpose. God sometimes removes what is good in order to make room for what is greater. If everything remained the same, growth would be impossible. Comfort can become an obstacle to calling. Familiarity can prevent transformation. When God begins to reposition a person, He may first disrupt what feels secure. This disruption is not meant to destroy, but to redirect. Closed doors are one of the clearest forms of positioning. A door that refuses to open can feel like rejection, especially when effort, prayer, and expectation have been invested. Yet a closed door can be protection. Entering too early or entering the wrong place can lead to unnecessary pain. God sees outcomes that are hidden from human sight. When He blocks a path, it is often because He knows where that path would ultimately lead. What appears to be denial may actually be deliverance. Loss also exposes attachment. Sometimes we hold on to things that were only meant for a season. God's positioning requires release. Letting go is painful. Not because what we had was evil, but because it was familiar. Yet growth demands movement, and movement requires space. When something leaves, it creates room for something new to enter. The discomfort of loss is often the evidence that change is taking place. Positioning reshapes perspective. When familiar supports are removed, vision begins to sharpen. Dependence shifts away from people, systems, or personal strength and turns toward God. This shift is essential. A calling that depends on human support will eventually fail. A purpose anchored in God can withstand uncertainty, delay, and opposition. Loss teaches reliance, and reliance builds resilience. In repositioning, identity is refined. Many people unknowingly define themselves by what they do, what they have, or who they are connected to. When those things are removed, it can feel like identity itself is being stripped away. But what remains is what truly matters. God does not remove identity. He reveals it. Positioning strips away false definitions so that true purpose can emerge clearly and without confusion. What makes positioning difficult is that it often happens before understanding. The reasons are not immediately clear. Clarity usually comes later after this shift has taken place. Looking back, patterns begin to form and connections become visible. The loss that once felt devastating is seen as necessary. The closed door is recognized as a turning point. The season of uncertainty becomes the foundation for future strength. Positioning also involves timing. God does not align people randomly. He moves them into place when the moment is right. What feels like being pushed back may actually be a step forward in disguise. When the appointed time arrives, those who have been positioned will find themselves exactly where they need to be, equipped in ways they could not have achieved on their own. Loss and alignment are deeply connected. One makes room for the other. Without release, there can be no repositioning. Without repositioning, there can be no fulfillment of purpose. What feels like subtraction is often preparation for multiplication. What feels like emptiness is often the space where something new will grow. When the season of positioning is complete, the pain of loss begins to fade, replaced by clarity and gratitude. The path ahead becomes visible. Confidence returns, not rooted in circumstances, but in understanding. What once felt like an ending is revealed to be a beginning. And it becomes clear that what was lost was never taken to harm, but to align a life with the direction it was always meant to go. Every season has a beginning, and every season has an end. Yet when a season is coming to a close, it is rarely obvious at first. There is often a sense of restlessness, a feeling that what once fit no longer does. The routines remain the same, but the satisfaction is gone. What used to bring clarity now brings confusion. This internal shift is one of the clearest signs that a season is ending and that transition is near. An ending does not mean failure. Many seasons end because they have accomplished what they were meant to do. God does not keep people in places that can no longer produce growth. When a season has finished its work, staying in it too long can actually hinder what comes next. Endings are necessary for progress, even though they are often resisted. Letting go of a season requires trust that God is still guiding the journey. As a season closes, old patterns begin to lose their power. Habits that once felt natural may now feel forced. Relationships may shift, not because of conflict, but because direction has changed. What once energized you may now drain you. This is not something to be feared. It is evidence that transformation is already in motion. God often signals an ending internally before it becomes visible externally. The closing of a season also brings exposure. Unresolved issues surface, not to condemn, but to bring completion. God brings clarity to what must be settled before moving forward. This may involve forgiveness, healing, or the release of expectations that no longer align with the future. Closure is part of transition. Without it, the next season can be entered, carry unnecessary weight from the previous one. When a season ends, identity is often challenged. People become comfortable defining themselves by roles, routines, or environments. When those things begin to fade, uncertainty can arise. Yet this uncertainty creates space for renewal. God is not removing purpose, He is expanding it. What you have been is not being erased, but what you will become is being prepared. The end of one chapter makes room for a greater story to unfold. Fear often accompanies the end of a season because the next one is not yet visible. The known is leaving, and the unknown has not yet arrived. This is where faith is refined. Trusting God in transition means believing that He is working even when the path is unclear. God does not end seasons without already having planned what comes next. The gap between seasons is not empty, it is intentional. As the old season closes, God begins to realign priorities. What once seemed urgent may lose importance. What was once overlooked may now demand attention. This shift is not accidental. It is preparation for the responsibilities of the next season. God adjusts focus so that when the new chapter begins, the heart is aligned with its demands. The end of a season is also a time of release. Holding on to what God is closing can delay what He is opening. Letting go requires humility and surrender. It means trusting that God knows when something has run its course. Release does not dishonor the past. It honors it by acknowledging its role and allowing it to remain where it belongs. When the transition is complete, clarity emerges, the confusion lifts, direction becomes evident. What once felt unstable now feels purposeful. Looking back, it becomes clear that the discomfort was not a sign of loss, but of movement. The season did not end to diminish life, but to advance it. Every ending carries the promise of a beginning. The closing of a chapter is not a setback, but a signal that growth is continuing. When God ends a season, it is because He is faithful to move forward. And what comes next is shaped not by fear of what ended, but by hope for what is being brought to life. There comes a moment when God does not ask for more effort, more striving, or more activity, but simply calls for a return. Not a return to perfection, but a return to alignment. Over time, hearts drift without realizing it. Distractions grow quietly. Compromises seem small. Priorities shift slowly. Nothing appears broken on the surface, yet something essential has moved out of place. The call to return is not spoken in anger, but in mercy. It is an invitation to come back to what was always meant to be central. Returning begins in the heart. Before actions change, direction must change internally. God does not start by demanding performance. He starts by asking for honesty. Acknowledging distance is not weakness, it is wisdom. Many people remain stuck, not because they lack ability, but because they resist reflection. The call to return is a call to pause and recognize where devotion has cooled, where obedience has softened, and where dependence has been replaced by self-reliance. Returning to prayer is often the first step. Prayer is not a ritual, it is a relationship. When prayer fades, connection weakens, life becomes louder, decisions become heavier, and clarity becomes rare. Returning to prayer does not require perfect words or long hours. It begins with sincerity. It is the willingness to speak again, to listen again, and to invite God back into every space that has slowly been filled with noise, worry, or control. Returning also means realigning with obedience. Obedience is not about rules, it is about trust. When trust weakens, obedience becomes selective. People begin to negotiate with conviction, delaying what they know they should do. Yet delayed obedience carries consequences. The call to return is a call to stop negotiating and start surrendering. God does not demand obedience to restrict life, but to protect it. Alignment brings peace that compromise never can. Humility is central to returning. Pride resists correction, but humility welcomes it. God gives grace to the humble because humility keeps the heart teachable. Returning requires the courage to admit, I don't have this under control, and the wisdom to allow God to lead again. Humility is not thinking less of oneself, it is thinking rightly about one's need for God. When humility is restored, clarity follows. Returning may also involve repentance, not as shame, but as freedom. Repentance is a redirection of the heart. It is choosing truth over justification and transformation over comfort. God never calls for repentance to condemn, but to restore. What is confessed is healed. What is brought into the light loses its power. Returning clears the weight that has silently been carried for too long. This call is urgent but gentle. God does not force the heart. He invites it, yet the timing matters. Moments of transition require alignment. Blessings require readiness. A shift without alignment can overwhelm instead of uplift. Returning prepares the heart to receive what is coming without distortion, or it ensures that change leads to growth rather than confusion. Many misunderstand the call to return as going backward. In truth, it is the only way forward. Returning does not erase progress, it strengthens foundation. It restores focus. It brings life back to what has become routine. What once felt distant becomes close again. What once felt heavy becomes light again. When a heart responds to the call to return, transformation follows naturally. Peace replaces striving. Direction replaces confusion. Strength replaces exhaustion. Not because circumstances instantly change, but because alignment has been restored. God has always been ready to move. He waits for hearts that are ready to walk with Him. The call to return is not about where you have failed, but about where you are going. It is the doorway to renewal, the preparation for change, and the foundation for what comes next. Those who respond will find that returning was not a step back, but the moment everything began to move forward again. There are moments when the same day passes over many people, yet its impact is entirely different for each one. The hours move at the same pace. The calendar changes for everyone equally, yet the outcomes are not the same. This is because transformation is not determined by the moment itself, but by the condition of the heart encountering it. A single day can feel ordinary to one person and life-altering to another, not because the day changed, but because the person did. God often moves in ways that do not force themselves on anyone. He presents opportunities, openings, and invitations, but He does not override the will. Two people can hear the same truth, receive the same warning, or stand at the same turning point and yet walk away with completely different results. One recognizes the significance of the moment, while the other dismisses it as just another day, awareness becomes the dividing line between change and stagnation. Readiness is not about perfection, it is about responsiveness. A ready heart is willing to listen, willing to adjust, and willing to act. An unready heart resists reflection and avoids discomfort. When a moment of opportunity arrives, the ready heart leans in, while the unready heart pulls back. The difference is not talent, intelligence, or opportunity, but humility. Those who are teachable are able to receive what others overlook. Often people assume that change requires dramatic signs. They wait for undeniable proof before responding. But God frequently works through subtle prompts, quiet convictions, and gentle nudges. The heart that is attentive senses these movements and responds. The heart that is distracted misses them entirely. This is why the same moment can produce breakthrough in one life and frustration in another. The condition of the heart also determines interpretation. A soft heart sees correction as guidance, while a hardened heart sees it as offense. A willing heart views change as growth, while a resistant heart sees it as loss. When a pivotal moment arrives, interpretation shapes response, and response shapes outcome. What is received with openness becomes transformation. What is resisted becomes another missed opportunity. Preparation plays a role in how moments are received. Those who have spent time reflecting, praying, and aligning are able to recognize significance when it appears. Those who have neglected inner work often feel overwhelmed or confused when change presents itself. Preparation does not create the moment, but it determines the ability to step into it. A heart that has been shaped in private is able to stand firmly in public transition. There is also responsibility attached to recognition. Once a moment is understood as significant, a response is required. Neutrality is still a decision. Ignoring a call does not cancel it, it simply delays its effect. Some moments do not return in the same form. What is missed today may require a longer path tomorrow. This is not punishment, but consequence. God is patient, but time is purposeful. What makes this reality sobering is that many people look back and realize they were present at a turning point without realizing it at the time. Only in hindsight do they see what was offered and what was missed. Yet for those who respond in the moment, the effect is immediate and lasting. Direction becomes clearer, peace settles in, momentum begins. Life takes on a new shape. The difference between lives that change and lives that remain the same is rarely circumstance, it is response. A responsive heart moves with God. A resistant heart stays where it is. The same day, the same message, the same opportunity can produce entirely different futures. When a significant moment arrives, the question is not whether God is moving, but whether the heart is open. Those who are willing will step forward and be transformed. Those who are unwilling will remain unchanged, not because nothing happened, but because they chose not to respond. In this way, the moment reveals what was already within the heart and determines what comes next.